We've already delved once into the dark and sinister world of Reddit's Let's Not Meet community, but it's a place filled with so many terrifying and chilling encounters with real-life people that we are far from done yet. Let's dive in once again. Here are the creepiest Let's Not Meet stories, part 2. Number 10 is Close Call. In the early 2000s, Reddit user I Am Just You was visiting her mom in Arizona. Driving along a lonely road to her destination at night, she noticed that a red truck was following behind, honking its horn and flashing its lights. The Redditor thought that there was something wrong with her vehicle and that the truck driver was alerting her to this. So she naively pulled over and got out of her car to see if indeed there was something wrong with it. The truck driver then pulled up next to her. The driver began getting out, and at that point the Redditor felt something was very wrong. She jumped in her car and sped off. The truck followed her for a while and eventually stopped chasing her. A few years later, she discovered that a serial killer in a red truck had been using the same ploy to capture his victims in that very same area. Number 9 is the Flight Attendant. A few years ago, a Redditor that we'll call Carrie was working as a flight attendant during a sabbatical for college. Being born and raised in Texas, she was delighted to find out that she would be spending a few nights in Austin, waiting for her next flight. She checked into a hotel downtown. When she was finally in her own room, she heard a knock at the door. This was followed by a man on the other side claiming that he had been sent by the front desk to fix a problem with her bathroom. Sensing something was off about the way the man was being, she refused. In response, he began hitting the door and demanded to be let in. Soon, hotel security and the police turned up, where the man grew even more violent before being arrested. After this, they identified him as a known criminal who had a history of committing extremely violent acts. Number 8 is the Easter Bunny. Somewhere between 2008 and 2009, 3 sisters were staying over at their grandmother's house. This in itself was not unusual. It was Easter time and they often had a sleepover there around that same time each year. During the night, they slept in a room with a window looking out to the darkness nearby. In the morning, the sisters claimed to have seen the Easter Bunny at night through the window. Most of the family believed this was just wild imagination or a joke. In any case, harmless. However, years later, when the sisters all spoke about that night, they realized that what they had seen wasn't imaginary, but very real. Even as adults, they could remember seeing this strange figure at the window. It was either someone dressed as the Easter Bunny watching the children, or some strange creature which was almost human. Number 7 is the Interview. In February of 2019, an anonymous Redditor received a phone call on their cell phone. No number appeared on the phone screen. Hanging up without answering did not deter the caller. The phone rang several times, again and again. Finally, the Redditor grew frustrated and answered the phone. A voice on the other end then said, "I will tell you who this is when you tell me what color your toenails are painted." Many similar calls occurred after this. The caller then left cryptic messages on the Redditor's Instagram account. Following this, the calls continued, and when the Redditor answered, it became clear that whoever was on the other end of the call knew very personal details. Finally, the truth was revealed. It was a man the Redditor had spoken with about a job months earlier. He had been gathering people's details through fake interviews to stalk them. Number 6 is keeping pets. For some, living in a forest miles from any neighbor brings peace and serenity. For others, solitude soon turns into a nightmare. Red had been living in such a place for several years with his parents. Outside of their home, they kept several large dogs in a wire enclosure, enough to ward off any prowlers who might want to intrude on them. However, one night around 3 a.m., Red's dad received a call from a blocked number. Answering it groggily, there was a man on the line shouting angrily about keeping the dogs quiet. A month later, the dogs escaped from their enclosure. Someone had cut a large hole in the metal fence to let them out. Luckily, the dogs returned from the woods on their own, but a stalker started leaving fresh meat for the dogs by their enclosure, trying to entice them back into the woods for who knows what purpose. Number 5 is the taxi driver. One Redditor shared the terrifying encounter their grandmother had when she was younger. The grandmother was 30 years old at the time and was heading to a business meeting in New York. She asked her hotel to call for a cab, and when she went outside, one was already waiting. Naturally, she assumed it was her taxi. She gave the driver an address, but after 15 minutes, she began to worry because they were driving through an unfamiliar part of town. The driver ignored any and all questions. Sensing that her life was in danger, she realized the back door was still open and jumped out. She then hid and saw the driver reverse and drive up and down the road looking for her. When the police investigated the kidnapping, they discovered that the cab driver is part of a people trafficking ring, masterminded by the hotel where she had been staying. Number 4 is the furnace room. Yuno had a terrifying encounter in her parents' home recently. At the time, the family were having renovations done to their home. People were coming and going all the time, but late one evening, when her father was in bed, Yuno and her mother wondered if someone else had stayed behind. They heard noises downstairs and went down to see if it was the family cat. When Yuno entered the bottom floor where they have a furnace room, she realized that the door to the furnace room was closed. They usually never closed it in order to let the cat go inside and catch mice. Yuno soon realized the thump she heard was the door closing and someone was hiding in the furnace room. She ran and got her dad, who phoned the police, and when they arrived, they found the back door to the house was open, and so was the furnace room door. Number 3 is call an Uber. A Redditor named Violet was working as a receptionist at a gym. At the end of her shift one morning, she called an Uber. Once in the car, the driver noticed Violet's uniform and so started asking her about her job at the gym. However, the conversation took a strange and creepy turn. The driver started suggesting to Violet that she should flirt with her boss, and then when he tried anything on, threatened to sue him in order to get promoted. Violet said she would never do anything like that, and in response, the driver became angry at this for some unknown reason. He then started railing against all women, and then started talking about how Violet and other girls were there to be used by men. Violet left the car and felt that she had narrowly escaped a very dangerous and disturbed person, one who was ramping up to commit a crime against the women he hated. Number 2 is a new home. Back in 2013, a 17-year-old girl moved into a new house with her parents. The landlord seemed like a nice old man, and the house itself looked over a river and was the ideal place that they had been looking for. However, this perfect home was soon to be the location of a terrifying encounter. One day, the girl was in this house by herself when she heard footsteps downstairs. She ran into her bedroom and barricaded the door and then phoned the police. While she waited, she heard the footsteps walking around her home, as well as furniture being moved around. When the police arrived, they found no one else there, but they did discover muddy footprints which stopped right outside the girl's bedroom door. To this day, they suspect the landlord was the culprit, using his own set of keys when he knew the girl was by herself. And number 1 was from out of nowhere. When you spend a few days in a hotel, you expect a clean room and somewhere to sleep in safety. What you don't expect to find is a strange woman going through your things. That's what happened to one Redditor from Florida. After work, the Redditor, we'll call her Tanya, returned with a coworker to her hotel room. Inside, they heard someone rummaging through her things. When they opened the door, a woman ran past them and disappeared down a stairwell. The room had been ransacked. When the police were called, they couldn't figure out how the woman had gotten into the room without a key. It was Tanya who solved the mystery herself. When she removed the wall-mounted mirror in the bathroom, she found that the woman had been hiding in a hole behind it, waiting for Tanya and her friend to leave, or worse, fall asleep. But as always, thank you so much for watching, for liking this video, and of course for subscribing to my channel. And a very special thank you to all of my channel members, especially the names you see on your screen right now. All of you help keep my channel going. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.